Hey guys, we got a little bit of a rumor going on that there's a third Zino out. So we had the original Zino about a year ago, and since then now we have the Hubsan Zino Pro, which is just now being released and shipped to everybody. And then we have the Hubsan Zino 2. So I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures, but I just want to make sure we say this is just rumor until, for sure we hear it from Hubsan or know that it's a fact that this is going to happen. But we've been through this before where they show quads or drones at like an expo, and they have a booth set up and they have all these different models. Now there's been a couple models we've seen in the past. If you've been with Hubsan for years, flying the 501s and everything, you've seen all those rumored models that never showed up. But being as though this is a Zino, and there's already two versions of the Zino, and everybody's screaming optical flow and image, optic flow for image stabilization, and then optical avoidance. It leads me to believe that it's probably true. So Hubsan wasn't real smart by showing this, because if you're going to order a new Hubsan Pro, now you might want to be saying, hey, I'm going to wait and see what happens here and pay more money for something other than just range, because let's face it, with the Hubsan Zino Pro, that's all we're getting is range. We're not getting extended battery life or anything like that. So we're going to go over what I think my predictions are for the Hubsan Zino 2. And we're going to look through the pictures. Now these pictures are pretty grainy and everything. These were something somebody shared that actually took them, got them from whoever took them at this expo. I don't know if cameras were banned or what, but the pictures are lousy. So I've cleaned them up the best I can. I've exploded them up a little bit, and just tried to make the exposure the best I can. And we'll go over what it claims it has as far as specs. But there's some obvious differences, and we'll talk about those real quick, and then I'll point them out in the video as well. But if you notice here, we've got this big flat nose. Now I've made fun of this in one of my first videos of the Hubsan Zino, just how square and everything this is. Well, they've gone and pointed this down a little bit. So you'll notice that actually right here it starts to raise up. So it has a little more shape into it with a new camera. And then you'll see a nice big sensor of some sort right here. And we'll explain that as well. So this might be some sort of an obstacle avoidance, although they're not calling it that in their specs. They're saying top and bottom, I think is what they call it, and we'll see it when we read the specs. But top and bottom optic flow. So I'm thinking top and then a bottom optic flow here. So maybe not obstacle avoidance, because that's not written in their specs. The other thing you'll notice that you don't notice here on the Zino is they've put vents into underneath the motors where your ESCs are. One thing that's been happening a good bit is people are burning up ESCs. Not a ton of them, but I fixed a few myself, and I know other people have as well. So maybe that's a problem where these ESCs are getting too hot. There's really no ventilation for them. So that's one thing that we can see has changed, is they've added venting. It also looks like the front legs might be a little rounder. Right now, they're sharp and square. It looks like they have a little bit of round edge to them. Not a big difference, but you will notice some thicker feet. So that tells me probably better antennas. These antennas are crap. These are about as cheap as you can get for your 5.8 Wi-Fi antennas with the thinnest of wires. So hopefully they've upgraded to a little more higher gauge cable or wire that runs to that with a better antenna for that system. So, and I don't know, maybe if you notice, the Zino only has one antenna now in the foot, and the other one is in the leg right here on the current Zino and probably the Zino Pro. So we don't know that by looking at pictures until we get one apart. But right now, early models have antenna here and here. Current models have antenna here and inside the arm itself. That's one antenna change they've already made. So other than that, the only other thing I can only speculate on is it does look like it sets deeper on the bottom. It looks like it's a little longer on the bottom, and I'm thinking possibly room for optic flow sensor, or they've gone and hopefully put us a bigger battery in this thing, so when you're going for that 4,000 meters, we have a little more battery life to actually do 4,000 meters. So let's go through and look at the pictures. And again, I just want to make sure I say, until we hear it or see it from Hubsan, let's just call this rumor. I know everybody loves this with DJI, you know, oh, early picture spotted of the Mavic Mini. You know, people love to do the rumor mill with DJI. So I think this is probably a first where I've done it for Hubsan. So this is kind of funny. So here's the other thing I just want to say is, or actually we'll save it for some afterthought. So at the end of the video we'll talk a little bit more. I'm not going to make this a real long video, but let's just go through the pictures right now, and we'll just go over, you know, what we can see in these pictures. And I'm sorry, I did the best I could. They were shot and put on Facebook. The picture quality was lousy, so I doctored them up the best I could to make them as clear as possible. But you'll get a fairly good picture, and I'll explain just why I think this is true. It's a rumor, but I think it's going to actually happen, and I'll explain why in the video. So let's go ahead and look at the pictures right now. Okay, so if you look at this picture right here, you'll see the clear differences. You look at the feet there, underneath the motors there where the feet touch the ground. They are definitely wider and round on the outside edge. So it looks like we've got probably a bigger antenna in there. The legs protruding from the body to the motors, or the arms, they look like they've got a little bit of a different shape. No big difference or anything to get excited about there, but you've got venting where the motors and ESCs are. So obviously that's something I think that was needed, that they've added to it. But the biggest difference, of course, is the nose of the quad. You can see that it is a slightly different shape. It's a little rounder and slopes up from underneath with the sensor on the front, and the difference in the larger camera, round camera lens. And then looking at this one, you can definitely see from the side angle where I was talking about how it has that incline above the camera, so there is a shape difference there. So my guess is where the gimbal hangs, they've gone and rerouted the cables up into the front frame, and then if there is a sensor or something there, they've made the room for that sensor, even though that nose looks a little bit smaller, but there's obviously a sensor of some sort there. So that's easy to see there, but the biggest thing you're going to see is the controller with the looks like aluminum or metal sticks. So maybe we have a better potentiometer, more precise flight, and of course the display where you're going to get all your information. What information is there is very unclear because, like I said, these pictures are terrible. So just looking at that picture, we can only speculate that all the information there would be something like you know, your satellite's battery taking video, your distance and all that. We don't know what type of, you know, like we have telemetry and all that, full telemetry and all that. So definite improvement in the controller is showing here. So that's about it. And you can see the vents like I pointed out. So we'll go to the next picture and we'll go over all the features. And we start at the top left where it says Ultra HD 4K. And then it's definitely something frames per second. And I want to say it looks like a 6, so it might be 60 frames per second. But we're just going to speculate on that one and you can take a guess. I'm going to guess and say it's 60 frames per second. And then we have the precision landing under that. And then we have panoramic photography, app firmware update, which we will talk further about that, detachable filter, and then we have automatic failsafe return to home, and then we have what they're calling top and optical flow positioning. So we'll talk further on that. And then we have hyperlapse, and we have orbiting, intelligent battery, long battery life. Maybe they've increased that, we don't know. 3-axis gimbal, less control, loss control failsafe, image tracking, and then looks like low battery or lowest battery, lower battery failsafe. So those are all the features. So the very important ones I think that we really want to talk about are the app firmware update. So we're going to go back and address that at the end. And then this top and optic flow positioning. What they mean by top, I do not know, but it definitely looks like it says top and optic flow positioning. We're going to assume optic flow on the bottom, and top might be that sensor on the front of the nose. So we can only really speculate there as to what they mean by that, but they've definitely added some sensors there, it seems like. So the next picture just shows you where they are at the expo here, and if you look on the left wall you can clearly see they start with the Zino, then you have the Zino Pro, and then it's hard to tell here but I'll blow it up where you see the Hubsan Zino 2, and then if you look at the right, the whole wall there, it's blown up above the gentleman in the blue shirt. They're really enhancing, showing this Hubsan Zino Pro. So that leads me to believe right there, just seeing that this might be true, just for the fact that it's not a brand new model. It's an existing model they've improved upon. So I would say that it's probably true that we would see this in the future, probably 2020. So I really wish you ever took these pictures, got bigger pictures, but we'll blow it up and give you a little better view of the walls there with the pictures on it, so you can see up closer all the quads. So there you can see that left wall much better, where it starts with the Hubsan Zino, it goes to the Zino Pro, Zino Pro, and then it's clear that they have the very last one, the third one there would be the Zino 2 that they're calling it. And then again on the far right wall, taking up the whole wall, they have a picture of the Zino 2, clearly showing that sensor off and the new style camera. So on to the last picture we're going to look at, and it's just basically just to show where I kind of got all the pictures from and copied and cut and cropped them. This came from what is definitely a brochure, so there is a printed brochure with all this, so it should be interesting. Okay, some important things that I just wanted to point out with this that they put into their features on this model. The biggest thing that's going to strike people, a couple things, would be top and optical flow positioning. So optical flow positioning, we automatically are going to assume that's on the bottom. What this top optical flow positioning is, it could be obstacle avoidance, which is in the nose there, or it has something to do with the positioning as well. Maybe it has something to do with the camera and their precise landing. I don't know. Maybe they've added some other sensor. So it might not be any type of obstacle avoidance in the front of this quad from what we're seeing. It's hard to tell, but there's definitely something there, definitely an improvement. So if this is going to surface as a Hubsan 2 or Hubsan Zino 2, it looks like they've actually made some pretty big improvements. So the next one I want to talk about is the app firmware update. That would be huge for Hubsan because we all know how crazy their updates are. For the app to just tell you, hey, you've got an update, you decide if you want to take that update or not, and then you do that update through the app, which I imagine you would still have to be hooked up to your controller just in case there's a controller update. I don't know if it's going to do everything. It just says app update, so it could update the controller, it could update, like FIMI, it updates everything. And I say FIMI because it's kind of closest to its class. So I don't know if it's going to do your FC, your gimbal, your camera, and your controller all within the app while you're connected to the controller and bound to the quad. So that's just a guess I'm going to take, that it's possibly going to do all those things. But it does say app update, so that's huge. Now, the other factor is the biggest factor, I think. You go and add all of these things at one time. So we've got the Hubsan Zino Pro out right now, and that's selling at $365. So that does put that closer to the FIMI X8. We get the FIMI X8 on sale from time to time at $399. So for me right now, if I have the two, Hubsan Zino Pro versus the FIMI X8 SE, I'm going FIMI X8 SE all the way with that price comparison. So adding these sensors, adding optic flow, definitely some sort of optic flow on the sensor on the bottom. What this is on the nose, optical avoidance or some other sort of sensor, there's definitely something there, but adding that with a new, possibly better camera at 60 frames per second, maybe. Extended battery, if that's the case, if they have a larger capacity battery. If you add all those things in, and then of course the controller, where you have the display on the front of the controller, the little LCD display where you have all your telemetry or whatever's going to be there in the upgraded stick. So you add up all that and it's going to definitely be a price increase. So where is that going to put this? Is this going to put this up closer to about $500, $600? So that's going to be a big factor right there. Because as far as I'm concerned, we're getting into a whole new product or model of the Zino, something that they've just added a whole bunch of stuff to at once. And if you know, the very beginning of a new product with Hubsan is a lot of fun. You're going to have probably some speed bumps and some firmware issues, features not working, bugs within the app. The update process might just be pretty bad. Where the FIMI X8 SE, it's pretty much honed everything, fixed all that stuff, and you're good to go. If you're up into that $600 range, you're putting yourself towards the Paradenofi. So I don't know if this is going to be really good for Hubsan or not. The only thing that is mind-boggling with Hubsan is just how dedicated their customers are. They have the worst customer service as of late. It's pretty much non-existent. It's just take your money and run type thing. There are Facebook groups where they offer the help and support. Those are a joke. If it wasn't for the members, those would just be, again, non-existent service. We do the best we can in my group, solving problems and fixing things with the Zino. I take them in and on my own and fix them in my home. I've done over 40 Zinos now. So the customer service you get from Hubsan is just pretty bad. You compare that to like Paradenofi, where they're replacing them and giving you remanufactured or whatever. They're taking care of the customer. FEMI is kind of in the middle. I haven't had any problems with FEMI in dealing with them. I've only discussed with them, but I have not had to do any warranty service with them. But they do respond where Hubsan just does not. So there's a lot of little things to factor in there like that. But I think the biggest thing is price range, and then you compare this being a new model, and if it's going to have any problems, should you wait for that? Most people don't. We just hit that button, whip out the credit card, hit that button, and go buy it. So it should be very interesting. And then the other thing too is I do not see them putting this out right away, obviously. That would just be stupid. So you have the Hubsan Zino Pro, and then you want to introduce the Hubsan Zino 2. So I would imagine that would be next year at this time, since the original Zino came out just about this time last year. As a matter of fact, October, I had mine. I was testing with them at the time. The Zino killed that, and that's when I stopped my ties with Hubsan. But that's when it came out, and now we've got the Hubsan Pro coming out around the same time. So I would imagine the Hubsan Zino 2 will come out about the same time next year, 2020. Being as though Hubsan Zino fans are so devoted, I imagine everybody's still going to be buying the Pro and not waiting for the Hubsan Zino 2. And then when that comes out, they'll be buying that too. And majority of people will probably have all three models, as will I. I've ordered my Hubsan Zino Pro, but there's issues coming from China right now, and I've yet to see it. So I didn't get it free from Banggood. I ordered mine, pre-ordered mine just like you guys, except I did it through Banggood. And they're having a hard time getting anything out of China through Hong Kong, whether it be these tariffs or what. There are issues there. They're being returned back, and this is just not through Banggood. So I don't even know if Hubsan is able to get them past Hong Kong and into the U.S. or your country. So I've tried 2 times. My first one was sent back, and I've got a tracking number on the second one that's not active yet, but it's a little further than my first one was. It actually says California, but it's not moved in 3 days, so I don't know what's going on there. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to try sending it to another country where my brother lives and just see if he can ship it directly to me. So maybe going to somewhere else, another country, and then shipping it to the U.S. might be easier versus trying to get it out of Hong Kong. So straight to the U.S. So I think U.S. is the big issue where if you order yours, it's having a hard time where they're just sending them back and not sending them to the U.S. So this is all kind of new, and I don't know for sure exactly what's going on there, but rumor has it it's this whole deal with the tariffs and everything. So if that's the case, you might want to send Donald Trump a letter and ask him to get you a Hubsan Zino, and maybe you can get one that way. So that's it. And again, I just want to make sure I make it clear this is just rumor at this point, but we've got some pretty good solid pictures. We've got the actual Hubsan Zino or the Hubsan booth at some sort of expo show or what have it, and they are definitely making it a big blown up picture on the wall and focusing on this Hubsan Zino 2 for the future, it looks like. So I think it is something we are going to see, and so we've got a good couple years ahead of us here of some real interesting stuff with the Zino, because we know it's going to be interesting with the Zino Pro, even though there's not much difference there in anything except for range. It will probably require a different firmware than the other Zino if they've done the different hardware, and so there's going to be some mix up with doing firmware upgrades, and maybe people bricking their quads because they're putting the wrong firmware in there. But I also did hear rumor that maybe the Hubsan Zino Pro might have this app update as well. So we'll find out. So until then, we'll just have to wait and see. But I just wanted to throw my little flag out there and show the big news that everybody's talking about, and ask that you share your discussions in the comments, what you think. If you're excited about it, if you don't care, what have it, just leave a comment. So thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button and the thumbs up on your way out. Take care.